The rain-slicked streets of New York City glittered under neon lights. But Alex Harper's heart was a storm of its own. He stood outside the towering glass fortress of Sterling Enterprises, clutching a crumpled photo of his sister, Lily, her smile frozen in time before everything fell apart. She was gone, and the man inside that building, Julian Sterling, was the reason why. 2 years ago, Lily had been a rising star at Sterling Enterprises, her dreams of corporate success bright until Julian, the company's ruthless CEO, fired her without cause, shattering her confidence. The fallout had been brutal: depression, isolation, and a slow unraveling that ended with Lily leaving New York and Alex behind forever. He'd spent every day since plotting revenge, and tonight, he'd set it in motion. The plan was simple: infiltrate Julian's world, charm his cold heart, and break it just as he'd broken Lily's. A fake relationship, a public scandal, and Julian's pristine reputation in ruins. Alex didn't expect to enjoy it, but the fire in his chest burned hotter with every step toward the skyscraper's revolving doors. Inside, the annual gala was a spectacle of wealth crystal chandeliers, champagne flutes, and power suits mingling under a canopy of string lights. Alex adjusted his borrowed tuxedo, his reflection in a mirrored wall showing a man who looked the part but felt like an imposter. His dark hair fell messily over his forehead, and his green eyes held a glint of defiance. He wasn't here to blend in. He was here to disrupt. Spotting Julian across the room, Alex's breath caught. The CEO was taller than he'd imagined, his sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes commanding the space. His black suit was immaculate, but his smile was a blade charming, calculated, and cruel. "You're staring," a voice teased beside him. It was Mia, his best friend and reluctant accomplice, her red dress a stark contrast to her skeptical frown. "Don't tell me you're already smitten." "Hardly," Alex muttered, though his pulse betrayed him. "He's just exactly what I expected. Cold, untouchable, perfect for breaking." Mia handed him a glass of champagne. "You sure about this? Fake dating the devil himself to ruin him sounds like a one-way ticket to trouble." "It's for Lily," Alex said, his voice steel. "He doesn't get to walk away clean." The plan had come together after weeks of digging. Julian Sterling, 32, was a Wall Street legend, but his personal life was a fortress. Rumors swirled about his aloofness, his refusal to date seriously, and a recent PR crisis hinting at pressure from his board to soften his image. Alex had found his opening: a fake relationship to boost Julian's public appeal, orchestrated through a mutual contact who owed Alex a favor. Tonight, he'd pitch himself as the perfect boyfriend, charming, unthreatening, and temporary. Julian would never see the betrayal coming. Alex crossed the room, weaving through the crowd until he stood before Julian. Up close, the CEO's presence was overwhelming, like standing too close to a flame. "Mr. Sterling," Alex said, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "I'm Alex Harper. I hear you're looking for someone to make you look human." Julian's eyes narrowed, assessing him like prey. "And you think you're the one to do it?" His voice was smooth, laced with mockery. "I know I am," Alex shot back, leaning in just enough to unsettle him. "I'm charming, discreet, and I clean up nice. Plus, I'm not intimidated by you." A lie, but one he sold with a crooked smile. Julian's lips twitched, a flicker of amusement or intrigue Alex couldn't tell. Bold, he said, sipping his drink. What's in it for you? Money, Alex lied smoothly. And a chance to see how the other half lives. The CEO studied him for a long moment, then extended a hand. 1 month. Public appearances. A few stage dates. Nothing more. You play your part, and I'll make it worth your while. Alex shook his hand, ignoring the jolt that ran through him at the contact. Deal. The first date was a week later. A charity dinner at a rooftop bar overlooking Manhattan. Alex arrived early, his nerves fraying as he rehearsed his role. Be charming. Be convincing. But keep his distance. Julian arrived in a tailored navy suit, his presence drawing every eye in the room. He slid into the seat across from Alex, his smile polished but distant. You clean up well, Harper, he said, his tone unreadable. Thanks, Alex replied, forcing a grin. You're not so bad yourself. For a corporate tyrant. Julian's laugh was low, unexpected, and it sent a shiver down Alex's spine. Careful, he said. I might start to like you. That was the problem. As the night wore on, Julian's icy facade cracked just enough to reveal glimpses of something else. Intensity. A guarded vulnerability that Alex hadn't anticipated. They bantered over wine, their conversation sharp and electric. And Alex found himself laughing, genuinely, at Julian's dry humor. It was disarming, dangerous. He reminded himself of Lily, of the plan. But every time Julian's gaze lingered a little too long, Alex's resolve wavered. By the end of the night, they were photographed leaving together, Julian's hand brushing Alex's back as they stepped into the elevator. The touch was staged, performative, but it burned through Alex's jacket. You're good at this, Julian murmured, his breath warm against Alex's ear. Almost too good. Alex forced a smirk, his heart racing. It's just acting. Sterling. Don't get any ideas. But as the elevator doors closed, trapping them in a charged silence, Alex wondered if he was the one who needed to be careful. This was supposed to be revenge, a calculated game. So why did it feel like he was the one being played? The weeks blurred into a whirlwind of staged romance and dangerous truths. Alex and Julian were the talk of New York's elite. Their relationship splashed across tabloids and social media. Photos of them at galas, laughing over coffee in Soho, or strolling Central Park fueled the narrative of a cold CO softened by love. Alex played his part flawlessly, smiling for cameras, leaning into Julian's touch, but every moment spent with the man he was supposed to destroy chipped away at his resolve. Julian was a paradox. In public, he was the untouchable CEO, his every word calculated, his charm a weapon. But in private moments, Alex glimpsed something raw, a man haunted by his own armor. One night, after a late dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant, Julian lingered at the table, his fingers tracing the rim of his wine glass. Why do you do this? He asked suddenly, his eyes searching Alex's. You don't need the money. Not really. Alex's stomach twisted. He'd rehearsed lies for this. But under Julian's gaze, they felt hollow. Maybe I like the challenge, he said, deflecting with a grin. You're not exactly an easy mark. Julian's smile was faint, almost sad. You'd be surprised. That night, Alex lay awake, replaying the moment. Julian wasn't supposed to be human. He was supposed to be the villain, the man who'd ruined Lily's life. But the more time they spent together, the harder it was to see him that way. Julian's cruelty, Alex realized, was a mask forged by years of betrayal and pressure. He'd caught glimpses of it, the way Julian's jaw tightened when board members questioned his leadership, the late-night calls he took in clipped, guarded tones. Alex wanted to hate him, but hate was slipping through his fingers like sand. The turning point came at a weekend retreat in the Hamptons, a staged getaway to solidify their romance. The beach house was all glass and white linen, the ocean a restless backdrop to their charade. They were alone. No cameras, no audience, and the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Alex stood on the balcony, the salt air sharp in his lungs, when Julian joined him, a bottle of bourbon in hand. "You're not what I expected," Julian said, pouring 2 glasses. His voice was low, unguarded, and it sent a jolt through Alex. Most people want something from Mepor. Money. Status. I can't figure out what you want. Alex took the glass, his fingers brushing Julian's. "Maybe I just want to know who you really are," he said, the words spilling out before he could stop them. It wasn't a lie, and that scared him. Julian's eyes darkened, a storm brewing behind them. "You wouldn't like the real me," he said, stepping closer. "I'm not the hero in this story." "Then who are you?" Alex challenged, his heart pounding. Julian didn't answer. Instead, he closed the distance between them, his hand grazing Alex's cheek. The touch was electric, and before Alex could think, Julian kissed him. It wasn't staged. Wasn't for show, it was raw. Desperate. A collision of need and restraint. Alex kissed him back, his hands fisting in Julian's shirt, anger and desire tangling until he couldn't tell them apart. When they pulled apart, breathless, Julian's voice was rough. "This wasn't part of the deal." "No," Alex whispered, his mind reeling. "It wasn't." The next morning, Alex woke to an email from Mia. She'd dug deeper into Lily's firing, and the truth was uglier than Alex had imagined. Julian hadn't acted alone. The board had pushed for Lily's dismissal, citing her as a distraction during a critical merger. Julian had fought for her, but he'd been outvoted. His signature on the termination papers a formality. The revelation hit Alex like a punch. He'd built his revenge on a lie, and now he was falling for the man he'd sworn to ruin. Confronting Julian was inevitable. That night, back in the city, Alex found him in his penthouse office, the skyline sprawling beyond the windows. "Why didn't you tell me?" Alex demanded, throwing the printed email on Julian's desk. "You let me think you destroyed her." Julian's face was unreadable, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of guilt. "Because it doesn't change anything," he said. "I still failed her. And you were supposed to hate me." "I did," Alex said, his voice breaking. "But I don't anymore." The admission hung between them, heavy and fragile. Julian stepped closer, his hand hovering near Alex's arm. "This was never supposed to be real," he said, almost to himself. "But you make me want it to be." Alex's heart ached. He wanted to hate Julian, to cling to his anger. But all he felt was the pull of something deeper, something he couldn't name. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Julian's answer was a kiss. Softer this time, but no less devastating. For the first time, Alex let himself believe this could be more than a game. But the plan, the betrayal, still loomed, and he wasn't sure he could outrun it. The truth about Lily changed everything, but it didn't erase the stakes. Alex was in too deep. His heart tangled with Julian's in a way he hadn't planned. Their relationship was still a performance for the world. But the moments alone, stolen glances, late-night talks, the brush of fingers in a crowded room felt painfully real. Alex wanted to confess everything, to dismantle the lie he'd built. But fear held him back. What if Julian saw him as just another betrayal? The breaking point came at Sterling Enterprises' annual shareholders meeting. The board, suspicious of Julian's newfound happiness, demanded transparency. Rumors of their fake relationship had leaked, fueled by an anonymous tip Alex suspected came from a rival executive. The gala that night was meant to be their final public appearance, a grand show to silence the doubters. But Alex knew it was also his last chance to come clean. In the penthouse suite before the event, Julian was pacing, his usual composure fraying. "They're circling," he said, his voice tight. "If they think this is a stunt, they'll force me out." Alex's guilt was a knife in his chest. "Julian," he started, but the words caught in his throat. How could he confess now, when Julian was fighting for his future? Julian stopped, his eyes locking onto Alex's. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Softer now. You've been distant all week." Alex faltered, then took a breath. "I didn't start this for the money. I started it to hurt you. Because of Lily." Julian's face went still, the air between them heavy. "Lily Harper," he said, realization dawning. "You're her brother." Alex nodded, his throat tight. "I thought you ruined her. I wanted you to pay. But then, I got to know you. And I fell for you. For real." The silence was deafening. Julian's expression was unreadable, a storm of hurt and anger flickering in his eyes. "You used me," he said finally, his voice low and dangerous. "Everything, every moment was a lie." "Not everything," Alex said, stepping closer. "Not the way I feel now. I love you, Julian. And I'm sorry." Julian turned away, his hands clenched. "Get out," he said, his voice breaking. "We're done." The gala was a blur of forced smiles and flashing cameras. Alex played his part, but every touch from Julian was cold, mechanical. When the night ended, Julian disappeared into the crowd, leaving Alex alone with his regret. He'd lost everything: his revenge, his heart, and the man he'd come to love. Days turned to weeks, and Alex threw himself into work, trying to forget. But Julian's absence was a wound that wouldn't heal. Then, one rainy evening, a knock came at his apartment door. Julian stood there, soaked and unguarded, his eyes raw with emotion. "I try to hate you," Julian said, his voice rough. "But I can't. I've spent my life building walls, and you tore them down. I don't know how to do this, love. Trust, but I want to try. With you." Alex's heart leapt, but he hesitated. "I hurt you," he said. "How can you forgive me?" "Because you were honest," Julian said, stepping closer. "And because I love you, too." They kissed in the rain, the world fading around them. It wasn't a perfect ending. Trust would take time, and scars would linger, but it was theirs. Alex had set out to break Julian's heart, but in the end, they'd both found something worth saving: each other. The city moved on, oblivious to their story. But for Alex and Julian, it was a beginning, a chance to build something real, not for revenge or redemption, but for love, messy, complicated, and undeniably human.